everyone, working on the '06 Pontiac Torrent. Front wheel hub, wheel bearing, gone. Anyway, I finished the job, and normally I would talk about this stuff at the end of the job. A couple of things I wanted to point out at the beginning of the job before you start. Now this wheel hub, I ended up having to cut it off with a grinder. Now, I could have gone and got a puller. I didn't, I just bowled ahead with it. That's on me. I worked harder than I needed to do. Should have went and bought a puller for it. But a good puller for doing that is $300. That's why I don't have one. I live in the Western Canada, and we don't have a big issue with rust. But this one here was rusted. But what I wanted to say about it was that if you're going to tackle this job, the first thing you should do is make sure the axle will slide inside the old wheel bearing. If you can't get that axle to move with the tools you have, I recommend that you just go right ahead, put the wheel back on, and take it to a shop. I ran into some problems, so you stick around and you'll see the problems I ran into. All right, let's get into this and let's check out this loose wheel bearing. So what's going on here is, since it's a scraping sound and I'm getting movement, quite a significant amount of movement up and down, and it's not a ball joint, getting quite a bit of movement side to side, and it's not a tie rod end, inner or outer, they're both good. It's a wheel bearing. Okay, next step, removing the caliper. Two bolts for the caliper. Take them out. And you might want to, if your brake pads are tight, might want to squeeze the calipers back a tiny bit. These ones are a little bit loose, they're getting worn. Now I'm going to pull off the caliper bracket. Whoop, not that quick. Don't lose your bolts. These are two short bolts. All right, they're going to need a little persuasion. Put power bar on them. That's not uncommon for these. So, oh, is that a pin? Don't know where that, oh, that's out of my, that, I don't know where it is. Hold on. We've got a problem here. Ah, interesting. Take that back. These are guaranteed for life, these tools. And the pin just fell out of the power bar. Well, interesting. I'll be taking that back. Getting a new one. Hey, this is only about 2 years old, this one. All right, falling right out. Anyway, Canadian Tire guarantees the maximum for life, so you're going to see that one back, guys. All right. I hardly even use that for anything. All right, let's get these off. Just like so. And I believe these are the same length, front, top, and bottom. Yes, they are. Set those aside. We'll pull the pads right off. Those pads are getting worn. I'll have to get my niece to get a new set of pads. Anyway, that's that. And I'll pull the rotor off, like so. She should slip right off over there, just like that. Now the fun begins. Now that we have it down to the hub, we can test this wheel bearing again, just to be sure. We don't want to replace something as difficult as this to get off without testing it. So let's have a little quick look. So look how loose that is. Definitely a wheel bearing. So we have the axle nut will have to come off. The wheel sensor, ABS sensor, will have to be disconnected and taken off. The shield that goes around here, it comes off with the wheel bearing. With the wheel hub, rather, hub assembly. I'm going to get an Allen key, take that wheel sensor off, I'll unplug it, take the wheel sensor out. A new wheel sensor will come with the wheel hub. So I'm going to turn the wheel sideways. And that's on there. Where's my breaker bar? So this is the trouble you'll get with these old ones. So I'm going to spray a little bit of deep creep on the bolts and then try to break them with the breaker bar. That one's coming. Okay, back with the a short 3/8 breaker bar, and I got a piece of pipe. I don't want to strip the head of that bolt, so I want to make sure this comes off. If you need to, soak them a few hours ahead with some penetrating, good quality penetrating fluid. Like I said, I use Deep Creep for almost everything I do. I find it works really well, but there are other ones out there. It's just what I use. Now, let's see if we can get this one. Here she comes. Three. These are pure poison, just so you know. I'll put a little on the axle too, a little Deep Creep, just in case. Okay, one of the biggest fears on one of these cars is this axle. So this axle happens to be rusted right in there. This could be interesting. Now that axle I've soaked down with Deep Creep, and it is rusted in there. So if you're living in the Rust Belt, you'll probably run into this. If you are living like out here, we don't normally have a lot of rust, but looks like an original bearing, and this is an 06, so this is a 20-year-old car. So you don't want to pound on that axle with a hammer, like directly on it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the nut back on a bit, and I have a drifter here. It's a metal drifter, and I'm not going to do much, but other than pound on it. Turn that in a little bit further if I can. So you don't want to damage those threads, or you're going to be in a mess. You'll end up pulling the axle and pulling the whole strut and everything off, and we may end up doing that yet. Pull the axle, strut, axle, and everything. But anyway, I'm going to try to do it with this drifter. Get this out of the way. I'm going to have to stand up to do it. Now I'm using I don't know, it's like a 10-pound sledge, or what is this thing? Doesn't matter. Sledgehammer and the steel drifter. Careful of your hands. Wear gloves and glasses. Whew, she is on there. Now that should slide back a tiny bit, but it's not right now. You'll know when it comes loose, you'll feel it. I'm going to take the nut off again, and having the nut on there also, if you did damage the threads a bit, having the nut on when you pull it back off will redress the threads. This is where this job goes off the rails. I should have just stopped and bought a good puller like this one. They are a little expensive, but worth the money. So I'm going to soak it some more Deep Creep. I may have to heat that yet. Oh yeah, she's a dandy. Well, while I'm waiting for the Deep Creep to work on the axle, I thought I'd start taking this bearing out. Now this car has a fairly flat surface right there. So I'm using a piece of heavy steel that I had and an old chisel, an old heavy chisel. There's bit knocker or hub knockers you can buy and I'd recommend getting one, even though I don't have one, but I would recommend if you're at home doing it and you're planning on doing more of these wheel bearings, is get yourself one of those hub knockers. And I believe I might get one myself. And they just bolt on here, and then you hit it with a sledge out here and pops it out. Because these can be very hard to get out, honestly, even in places that don't have a lot of rust. You can use bolts, and I have done it on a Cadillac. I've used short pieces of heavy threaded rod with 2 nuts and push it away. But they're very hard to get out sometimes. Let's see if we can get this off, and then maybe that axle will come out. If not, I'll cut the wheel bearing apart. There, she's broken free there. Now if I can find another spot. That's as far down as that's going to go. So if I go crossways on it, maybe it'll come off. There's nothing on the bottom to do anything with. that I could see. Like there's not much down in here. Maybe right there I could do the same. Let's try that. It's hard to pound up like that. But this is coming off now, slowly. I'm going to try just on a glancing angle, get a little more of that wedge in there, like so. And again, you don't have to worry about the old bearing, she's knookered anyway. I've got another smaller cold chisel, and I'm going to see if I can get it in here, force this out of here. A hub knocker, I think, is the way. Holy moly, guacamole. That was dirty. That was a dirty bugger, you know. Anyway, I just kept going around with my chisel best I could all the way around. And she's out now. Now I have to deal with this axle. So, as you can see, I had to cut it. I had to cut a hole in there so I could get my grinder in. I tried the Sawzall, broke the blade. So now I got it. The reason I had to cut it is I can't get that shaft out and I don't want to destroy the end of it. Alright, so let's get this old bearing off here. This part of it anyhow. Well, like not. There. Anybody ever wanted to see what's inside of one of these? There it is. Now I gotta make another cut because I didn't give it halfway. Alright. Wow. That axle, I'm telling you, that axle is on there. So the plan is I can cut this flange off and then cut across there again, but it looks like I'm going to have to give it another cut here just to get rid of this. So let me do that. Alright, see what happens. Flip her over, maybe we can chisel it off this way. Easier. There she goes. There. Pop that baby off. Now I have to get this flange cut off here. I cut on both sides, but it's not cut right through. But let's see if we can split it some. Oh, that's like a lot of grinding. I'm going to cut it off a little more. Don't want to cut the axle. Something happened with that axle. There's no way it should have been like that. There she comes. Holy! All right, this one. Whoa! Half of the axle shaft is exposed. Look, and it will not pop off of it. All right, well, I'll get it off. I'll keep working on it. Wow, that was quite a struggle getting that hub off of that axle. Anyway, let's get the floor cleaned up, and we'll get her back put back together. Okay, time to clean up the threads. I have a tool here that's meant for doing pipe, and it's not, I don't have the right die. So I'm gonna have to go at it with just the file. So this is gonna take a few minutes to get these little imperfections done. Got her cleaned up pretty good there now. Hopefully that's gonna do the trick. Let's get that new bearing on. And as tempting as it is, you shouldn't really be lubing these. I could use a little bit of Never Seas if you like, but don't use grease or anything like that. A little bit of anti-seize will be fine, but very lightly. All right, let's see if we can get this baby on there. And don't forget to put the dust shield back on. And while I'm here, I'll put this clip through while it's easy to get in. There we go. Now, this dust shield took an awful beating, but looks like everything's going on pretty decently. There we go. Line the bolts up, and I'll get them put in. All right, so you just kind of bring them in, get them started, and then bring them in equally. Yeah, don't forget the dust shield. I'm going to tell you a story. I put the engine in the 65 Thunderbird last summer. Put the engine in after I did the paint job, and guess what? I didn't put the spacer in for the transmission. And guess what I had to do? I had to pull the engine back out. I even had the torque converter nuts on. That was a blunder. Everybody makes mistakes, that's for sure. Well, some people don't. At least when you talk to them, they don't. But I do. Once in a while, I'll make a mistake. Like this job right here was a mistake in itself because I didn't stop and think. I should have stopped and thought more about it and probably went and got a puller for this rather than just cutting it off. Anyhow, I did what I did, and that's the way it goes. But it made for a lot of work. It took about a half hour or so to cut it off. By the time I go find a puller to buy around here, I'd have been gone for a couple hours. All right. That one's not coming in straight. All right, I'll get this put on. Okay, time to torque up the axle nut. I gave it already a little twist there, and it's pretty much bang on, but I'll show you. So 151 foot-pounds of torque for this vehicle. There she goes. Back it off in case I don't use it right away. Anyway, let's get the rest put back together. All right, we got her all done. Just go through a little rundown to make sure everything's in place. We've got the ABS plug back in. Got the the brake caliper mounting bolts back in and torqued down. Got the brake caliper back on, torqued by memory. Anyway, we got that done, so let's get the wheel on her. Okay, time to torque the wheels. I'm doing a star pattern, 100 foot-pounds. As you can see, I already went through this. It doesn't hurt to double check. And I like to go right around one more time. One. And if you're doing this yourself and you have a torque wrench, you might want to just double check on it in a few days of driving. All right, there we are. All right, in the car, I'm gonna pump the brake pedal till it comes up hard with the engine off. So that'll bring those brake pads back out to the rotor. There she is, just like that. If you don't do that and you go out on the street and you start the engine, go out on the street, you'll have trouble stopping the first time. So make sure you do that. That's a critical point on this job, is make sure those brake pads are back out. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch up with you in the next one.